Hello. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am here in my garden, watering my beautiful plantas in the evening. In my garden currently have the Three Sisters growing. If you don't know who the Three Sisters are, they are a set of vegetables that have for centuries grown really well together. And those vegetables are corn, squash, and beans. I just asked the tree if I can take some blossoms, and they luckily said yes. So I grabbed some blossoms, and I plan to make a tea with them, but they smell so yummy, very citrusy. Look at him. So cute. Welcome to my room. This is one of my favorite spots in the whole world. I am setting up the ambiance to brew some tea Gung Fu style. If you've never heard of Gung Fu style tea, I definitely recommend looking into it, especially if you're a big tea head like me. I have started with herbal tea, and then I was recently introduced to the Gung Fu style tea. I went to a class in LA that I ended up finding on Instagram on one of those popular reels of like what to do in LA. And so I went to that class, really enjoyed myself, really enjoyed learning this new style of tea. However, I never really took it on as a practice that I actively did until I went to the Riverside Art Walk, where some fellas were brewing Gung Fu style tea for anybody who went through to their gallery area. So it wasn't until then that I realized, yeah, I'm gonna get into this. And luckily I connected with those guys and got myself a gaiwan. And then I really kicked off my tea brewing days and really expanding it from herbal teas to tisane teas and so many new and different flavors and ways to brew, from 6 seconds to 20 seconds to well over 2 minutes, and getting various different flavors. So fun. So I decided to sit down after brewing some tea and journal out some big emotions that I was feeling from my day to day. Some highlights, some lows, and reflecting on that so that I can move forward. Speaking of reflecting, so last year I had taken a poetry class led by James Coates. He's an amazing poet in the Inland Empire, and this class was completely free, and it was a couple sessions, and it really dove into what is poetry and how can we get started in writing poetry. It was literally any entry level from beginner to expert can go to this class and just gain more tips in writing poetry. So the class would always start with a prompt, and you would have to write a poem based on the prompt or the few words given. And then the workshop would usually go into other poetry written, and we would be reflecting and analyzing those poems and then making more poems with techniques or tips that we gained from reading those poems. So here I'm going to read one of my poems that I had written in the beginning of the class to warm up and get acquainted with other folks in the class. It was so fun. So here's one of my poems. I am from a house with many windows, looking out to the sea, looking out to the trees, looking out to the mountains, looking for the outs and the ins. I am from my grandpa's heart and my grandmother's mind. I am from my parents' will to fortify a familia familiar to their skin and bones. I am from my birth mother's addiction. I am from grief, trying to seek outside these windows to remind myself that I am from the sea, I am from the trees, I am from the highest peaks, even on my lowest weeks. I am from love. Thank you for listening to that poem. This poem is actually really related to conversations that I've been having recently with some new folks that I've been meeting. And, it's always fun and interesting to hear how people react when I tell them I'm adopted. And I recently met my siblings about 5 years ago now. 5 years ago, I met my 4 older siblings, and then about 3.5 years ago, I met my younger brother. And it's been quite an interesting time having them in my life now. And there's been a lot of catalytic events that have really shaped my character today as well. But I would say the identity of being adopted has always shaped me. And while it's always been an identity that I have at first never really reckoned with, and then as I grew older and my little kid mind fully understood what being adopted meant, because my parents were the type of parents that always told me I was adopted, which honestly I'm so grateful they did, because it would be quite a mind boggle to hear, oh, you're not my real parents when I get older, Anyways, when I was a kid though, the idea of being adopted, it never really registered with me until I was a lot older. Maybe about 9 or 10 is when it really registered. Oh, that's what being adopted means. And, now that I am older, it's really just been a recognition of what these systems are that we live in and how certain structures are created to categorize us in society, and one of those structures being the family structure. And it's really built and shaped my character since I was a kid, and I'm really grateful for that, because now as an adult I could really look at these structures and systems in society and kind of say, why do we need that? And is it necessary? And how is this benefiting us? And after reading this poem, it really puts into perspective that the only structure and system that should truly matter to all of us as a society is the ecosystem of which we live in, and that is the one and only Mother Earth, nature. And we come from nature, we are nature, and it's a reminder that that system is rooted in love. These are so fun. I could see them literally reflecting everywhere. And then 2 of Vons, there's just a rainbow. Wonder if my cat can see it. Weird. So yeah, if you read tarot, have fun deciphering my cards for me. I would love to hear your messages you received from them in the comments, what you think the reading is telling me. I could also be telling you. I was just kind of shuffling and seeing what would pop out. I kind of had an intention of like, like what do the cards have to tell me right now as I'm filming this, as I'm doing this process. So yeah, that would be kind of cool to hear what you received from the cards and if it resonates with you or if you think it's specifically for me. Let me know in the comments.